The question that refuses to die. There is a moment in history when curiosity becomes rebellion, when the official narrative becomes too weak, too fragile, too incomplete to hold back the weight of real questions. The Alexander Column is one of those moments. For nearly 2 centuries, people have accepted its story without hesitation. A 600-ton monolith carved with 19th-century tools, transported across rivers and marshes, lifted perfectly upright with ropes and manpower, polished to mirror-like precision with hammer and chisel, and somehow balanced without a foundation. It's a story wrapped in pride, repeated in textbooks, and celebrated as a triumph of human will. But when you peel away the layers of national pride and historical assumption, when you stand in front of that massive, impossibly polished granite column, when you look closely at the evidence that should exist, but doesn't, you feel something is wrong. Not a small inconsistency, a gaping contradiction. Because this monument doesn't behave like a product of the 19th century. It behaves like a relic, an inheritance, a surviving fragment from an age of technology we no longer understand. This script is not just about questioning a monument. It is about questioning the foundations of our historical identity. And the deeper you go into the Alexander Column, the more it feels like a coded message left behind by another civilization, one we may have forgotten. Or maybe we were never meant to remember.
When official history breaks its own rules. Let's begin with what we're told. The Alexander Column was erected in 1834 under the supervision of architect Auguste de Montferrand. It was supposedly carved from a single block of granite in a quarry near Virolati, transported by barge, moved by rollers, and finally lifted into place in Palace Square, St. Petersburg. It's a clean, inspiring story, the kind empires love to tell. But there's a problem. Actually, there are many. 1. No evidence of the quarrying process. For something as historically significant as a 600-ton monolith being cut out of solid granite, there should be sketches, blueprints, technical drawings, work logs, tool lists, eyewitness accounts, inspection notes, failed attempts, experiments, broken stones. But none of these exist. Not one. There is 0 primary documentation showing the stone being cut, no diagrams of how the block was shaped, no records of polishing methods, no evidence of adaptive tools. It is simply stated, it was quarried, as if that explains anything. 2. The polishing problem. Granite is one of the hardest natural stones known to man. Even today, industrial machines use diamond-tipped tools to shape granite cylinders, and even then, imperfections remain. But the Alexander Column? It is flawless. Perfect curvature, perfect symmetry, perfect vertical alignment, polished so smooth it reflects sunlight. You don't get this with 19th century hammers. You don't get this with wooden scaffolding and manual sanding. You don't get this without powered machinery. This is not craftsmanship. This is industrial-grade engineering. 3. The foundation illusion. Perhaps the most unsettling fact. The column has no foundation. It stands purely on its own weight, perfectly balanced. In modern engineering, balancing a mass of this size without anchoring is dangerous. One calculation error and the monument becomes a 600-ton disaster waiting to happen. Yet, somehow, without lasers, Without sensors, without structural modeling, they balanced a 600-ton cylinder so precisely that it has never shifted an inch in 190 years. No cracks, no tilting, no repairs. Even today, no engineer would attempt such a feat without digital measurement systems. But supposedly, in the 1930s, this was routine?
The transportation paradox. Picture a 600-ton granite monolith. Now imagine transporting it 300 kilometers across forests, rivers, and unstable marshlands using wooden sleds, ropes, wagons, human labor. This is the official story. But ask yourself, where are the broken roads? Where are the damaged bridges? Where are the logs of accidents? Where are the design schematics for the transport platform? Where are the engineering calculations? Where are the test runs? Moving even a 100-ton object today requires massive steel platforms, specialized vehicles, and careful routing. But a 600-ton polished cylinder was moved without leaving a trace of destruction? Even the barge designed to carry it, no blueprints, no sketches, no construction details, just claims. Not one mechanical drawing has survived. Not one artifact of the transport system was preserved. History simply assures us they moved it, as if the sheer impossibility of the task is irrelevant. Ancient technology hiding in plain sight. When you observe the column closely, something becomes clear. This was not built as a decorative monument. The precision alone indicates industrial-level capability. But there are deeper anomalies. The perfect cylinder. Machining granite into a perfect cylinder requires rotational cutting, lathe-like motion, and extreme torque. No such technology existed in the 1830s. But the column suggests it did, or rather, it existed somewhere. No tool marks. Every surface is smooth. Every angle is refined. Every detail is sharpened with mathematical clarity. But 19th century granite cutting leaves scars, deep grooves, friction burns, uneven surfaces. Yet the Alexander column has none. The device on top. The angel and cross at the top are described as symbolic, but the structure beneath them, the core base that supports the statue, appears mechanical. It has circular indentations, interlocked segments, an elevated platform with technical geometry. It looks less like a religious accessory and more like the remnant of an ancient mechanism. Was the angel simply added later? Was the column originally part of a larger technological structure, perhaps an energy conductor, an astronomical instrument, a resonance device? We may never know, but the shape is not accidental. St. Petersburg, a city that shouldn't exist. To truly understand the Alexander column, you must understand St. Petersburg. The city was supposedly built in swampy, mosquito-infested marshland in just a few decades. But the architectural scale is overwhelming. Massive granite embankments, gigantic stone blocks, perfect symmetry, advanced drainage systems, multi-story structures aligned with cosmic geometry. Did an 18th century empire really build all this from scratch under constant flooding and disease? Or did they inherit it? Did they discover an ancient city, restore it, and claim it as their own? This theory is not as radical as it sounds. Many buildings appear older than their official dates. Many foundations lie far below ground level, as if the city was buried. Many structures show signs of renovation, not original construction.
When you view St. Petersburg through this lens, the Alexander Column becomes something else entirely. Not a monument, but a leftover component of a forgotten technological world.
There was a time in human history when technology exceeded our current understanding. And the Alexander Column may be the silent witness of that age. But a cycle of rise, collapse, and rediscovery. The Alexander Column is not the only anomaly. There are hundreds across the world. Baalbek stones, the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, the Yonaguni structures, the Kailasa temple, the Olmec heads, the megalithic walls of Sacsayhuaman. These are not crude experiments. They are expressions of mastery. And mastery does not appear suddenly. It is inherited. Which means, if the column predates the 19th century, then who built it? And why did their knowledge disappear? Possibilities include a pre-flood civilization, a lost Eurasian empire, a technologically advanced culture erased by catastrophe, a forgotten society whose architectural remains were later repurposed by modern nations. What if Europe's classical monuments are not expressions of human evolution, but the last surviving bones of a dead giant? What if history is not a linear climb?
The story they want you to believe. Why does the official story insist the column was built in the 1830s? Because history must remain simple, linear, predictable, safe. If people begin questioning one monument, they may begin questioning them all. The narrative protects the authority of institutions, governments, academies, museums. Admitting the existence of a forgotten advanced civilization forces us to rewrite everything. Timelines, technologies, migration patterns, civilizational origins. It changes the story of who we are. So they give us a convenient explanation, one that skips the details and rewards obedience. But truth lives in the details, and the Alexander Column has none.
The impossible engineering behind the column. To understand the Alexander Column, you must understand one simple truth. Granite does not forgive mistakes. It is not like wood or bronze where wrong cuts can be patched or reshaped. Granite demands absolute precision. Once you carve, you cannot undo. A single miscalculation ruins the entire structure. Yet the Alexander Column is beyond flawless. Its diameter remains consistent for its entire 25-meter height. Its curvature matches exact geometric proportions. Its polish mirrors light with almost metallic reflection. This level of perfection raises several questions. How was it rotated during shaping? How was its surface machined so evenly? How was its weight distributed so precisely that it stands without a foundation? Modern engineers using advanced software and diamond machinery still struggle to create cylinders of this scale. But the 1830s supposedly achieved it with ropes and chisels? If so, then where did that technology disappear to? Why can't we replicate it today with the same simplicity? Why does history show no evolution towards such skill, only isolated cases of impossible mastery?
And why do these impossible monuments cluster in the same regions across the world? The answer may lie in a forgotten past. The evidence of advanced machining. Let's imagine for a moment that the Alexander Column is exactly what it appears to be, a monumental machine component. Not symbolic, not decorative, but functional. A structural piece of a large system. When you zoom in on high-resolution images of the column, you notice 1. Parallel polishing patterns. These suggest high-speed rotational grinding, like a giant lathe. 2. Perfect axial symmetry. This requires tools that rotate with the stone itself. No human-operated chisel can maintain such symmetry. 3. Microscopic uniformity. The texture is consistent to a degree that only machine-driven movement can produce. If we compare this with modern granite machining, our industrial lathes create similar patterns. Our robotic arms produce similar uniformity. Our CNC machines polish stone to similar shine. Meaning, the column does not resemble 19th century craftsmanship. It resembles modern engineering, except it is far larger than anything we build today. Which raises a chilling possibility. The builders were not primitive. They were advanced, perhaps more advanced than we are. The mystery of the angel and the mechanism. At the very top of the column stands the angel statue, but the real mystery is not the angel, it's what the angel is standing on. The base consists of geometric shapes that look more like engineered components than artistic ones. Features include circular slots, segmented rings, evenly spaced grooves, lift points, mechanical symmetries. These are not decorative, they are functional shapes. Common in machinery where parts interlock or rotate. Ask any mechanical engineer, the geometry is purposeful. This leads to one of the boldest theories surrounding the column. The angel was added later. The structure on top originally held something else. Something mechanical. Possibly metallic. Possibly an energy conductor. Possibly a device that interacted with the stone itself. Granite is piezoelectric. It generates voltage when under pressure. A 600-ton granite column standing upright could theoretically serve as a resonance conductor, a vibrational antenna, a signal amplifier, or a structural capacitor. Was the column part of an ancient energy network, an early version of geological power systems, or a monumental tuning fork? These ideas may sound far-fetched until you consider the thousands of ancient structures around the world with similar properties.
The Great Forgotten Empire Theory. History tells us that empires rise and fall. But what if an empire rose so high that when it fell, its technology became incomprehensible? Think about it. If our civilization collapsed tomorrow, how much of our technology could survive 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years? Metal rusts, electronics decay, memory fades, records vanish, but stone remains, particularly granite, basalt, diorite. So why do we find so many enormous, precisely shaped stones across Eurasia? Why are the same patterns, perfect drilling, seamless fitting, impossible polishing found in Egypt, Peru, Turkey, Siberia, Russia, India, Japan, Bolivia, Lebanon? All created by civilizations that supposedly had no connection.
The Great Forgotten Empire theory proposes this. These were not separate cultures. They were regional remnants of one massive, technologically advanced civilization. A civilization that understood acoustic engineering, structural resonance, stone machining, energy conduction, geometric power systems. St. Petersburg, with its massive granite blocks and anomalous architecture, may have been one of its cities, and the Alexander Column may be one of its surviving components.
St. Petersburg as an inherited city. When you study the city carefully, a pattern emerges. 1. Buildings too large and advanced for their time. The Winter Palace, the Hermitage, the Admiralty, the General Staff Building. These structures are massive, symmetrical, and built with precision far exceeding the capability of 18th century Russia. 2. Foundations buried deep underground. Many buildings have windows and doorways several meters below street level. This suggests the city was buried by a cataclysm, a flood or mud flow. 3. Granite embankments of impossible craftsmanship. Each block is huge and perfectly fitted. No historical builder in the 1700s had the capacity to quarry, move, and place these stones efficiently. Yet they appear as if part of a pre-existing city. 4. Rapid construction myths. Many official dates claim structures were completed in absurdly short periods, time frames that make no architectural sense. Entire palaces allegedly built in a few years. Massive complexes completed almost overnight. More likely, they were restored, not built. The empire inherited the city, renovated it, and added its own symbols. But the bones of the city, the granite, the foundations, the older structures, are from a much earlier time. The cover-up of a historical reset. If an ancient civilization collapsed, its knowledge likely vanished during a global cataclysm. One possibility is the global mud flood theory, a natural disaster or series of floods that buried cities worldwide. Another possibility is a solar event, a geomagnetic catastrophe that wiped out electrical technologies. But regardless of what caused the collapse, the result is the same. A new society arose among the ruins. They found cities, they found structures, they found relics, and they took credit for them. Nations rewrote their histories. Rulers claimed monuments they did not build. Academies created new timelines to fit political narratives. This is not conspiracy. It is human nature. Every empire rewrites the past to strengthen the present. So the Alexander Column's origin story, clean, patriotic, simplified, fits perfectly into the pattern of historical revision. Why the column still stands? Many people ask, if the column is ancient, why does it still stand so perfectly? The answer lies in its engineering. 1. Perfect center of mass. Its weight is distributed with mathematical precision. Even a slight deviation would cause imbalance, yet it remains perfectly upright. 2. Granite's durability. Granite is nearly immune to erosion. It survives wind, rain, freezing, and centuries of weathering with minimal damage. 3. Its shape enhances stability. A tall, slender cylinder distributes force evenly. It is less likely to crack compared to decorative statues. 4. Ancient builders understood seismic principles. Many ancient structures worldwide show resistance to earthquakes. Japanese pagodas, Egyptian temples, Peruvian walls. They use geometry to absorb shock. The column may use the same principles. 5. A deeper base structure may exist underground. Although the official record says the column has no foundation, ground-penetrating study has never been publicly released. What if the visible portion is just the top? What if the real structure continues below the surface?
we may be seeing only a fragment of a much larger machine.
What the angel really means. The angel on top is often pointed to as evidence that the column is purely religious. But the angel is unmistakably 19th century artistic style. The column is not. The angel stands lightly, almost unnaturally balanced. Its pedestal base does not match the craftsmanship of the column itself. This suggests the angel was added later. The column originally served a different purpose, possibly functional rather than symbolic. The angel may simply be a rebranding effort, a way to frame the monument within Christian imperial narrative. What better way to hide ancient technology than to place a religious statue on top and call it a victory monument? The unanswered questions multiply. Let us list the questions mainstream history refuses to answer. Who carved the column? What tools were used? How was a 600-ton stone transported without documentation? Why are there no records of quarrying? How was the perfect cylinder shaped? Why does there no foundation? Why does it resemble machined stone? What is the purpose of the mechanical-looking structure on top? Why do so many buildings in St. Petersburg appear older than officially claimed? Why are many windows buried underground? Why does the city resemble other ancient sites worldwide in its geometry? These are not conspiracy theories. These are engineering and archaeological inconsistencies. And when inconsistencies pile high enough, they become a clue pointing to a forgotten chapter of human history.
The parallel monuments around the world. The Alexander Column is not alone. Across different continents, civilizations, separated by oceans and millennia, somehow produced structures that defy the technologies they supposedly possessed. And all these monuments share specific traits: massive single stones, perfect geometric alignment, precision machining, mysterious transportation, unknown builders, no construction records, later civilizations claiming credit. Let's examine a few. Baalbek, Lebanon. Stones exceeding 1,000 tons placed with such precision that even a sheet of paper cannot fit between them. No quarry marks, no transport evidence, no tools found. Sacsayhuaman, Peru. Giant interlocking stones with angles so complex they resemble 3D puzzles. They resist earthquakes effortlessly. Stone cutting marks resemble laser precision. Kailasa Temple, India. Carved downward from a single mountain, engineers today cannot replicate the feat. No debris field exists from the excavation. The unfinished obelisk, Aswan. A 1,200-ton stone that reveals bizarre, smooth horizontal cutting marks similar to modern machines. Yonaguni Monument, Japan. A massive underwater structure with perfectly straight cuts and right angles that defy natural erosion. Each site contradicts its official history, and the Alexander Column fits perfectly into this pattern. It behaves like part of a global system, a relic of a civilization that built using massive stone because stone alone could survive the collapse. When history is a puzzle with missing pieces. Imagine reading a book where every other page has been torn out. That is human history. We have fragments, artifacts, puzzles, contradictions, ruins, anomalies, impossible objects, disappearing cultures. We do not have construction data, technological evolution, tool remnants, blueprints, transportation methods, shared knowledge, continuity. Every ancient culture suddenly appears in the historical record already building advanced structures, and then just as suddenly collapses or disappears. Human brilliance does not work that way. Civilizations evolve progressively. Unless what we call ancient civilizations were actually inheritors of something older, more advanced, and already dying. The Alexander Column may be one of the few remaining artifacts built at the height of that lost era. The myth of impossible speed. Look deeply into the construction timelines of old cities, and you will see a pattern. Cathedrals built in 10 years, palaces completed in 3, massive complexes erected overnight, entire cities rising in a generation. But real historical construction, with real human labor and real tools, is slow. Cathedrals in Europe took up to 300 years to complete. Castles took decades. Bridges required generations. But somehow, St. Petersburg, Paris, Rome, Vienna, Berlin, all experienced sudden booms of construction with similar architectural styles and techniques. The Alexander Column fits this pattern. It appears suddenly, fully formed, fully polished, fully functional, with no development phase. This is not how human innovation works. This is how restoration works. When something already exists, you don't need to develop the techniques. You only need to understand enough to reassemble or repurpose it.
The catastrophe they never taught us. For a civilization to disappear so completely that only stone monuments remain, something catastrophic must have happened. Possibilities include a global flood, supported by multiple ancient texts. Almost every culture speaks of a great flood, not local flooding, but a world-resetting deluge. A worldwide mud flow, evidence in buried cities. Many cities show signs of being partially buried under layers of soil and clay. Solar micronova, recently considered by astrophysicists. A sudden solar blast could destroy electronic technology and burn records. Geomagnetic pole shift. This would cause massive environmental instability. Planetary impact or airburst event, like the Tunguska explosion, but on a global scale. Global war in prehistory. Less likely, but ancient texts often describe divine wars with advanced weapons. We do not know which happened, but we know something did. Structures were buried. Cultures vanished. Knowledge evaporated. And yet some objects, some massive stone-based technologies survived. The Alexander Column may be one such survivor. The column as an energy device. One of the most intriguing theories is that the column was part of an ancient energy system. Why? 1. Granite is piezoelectric. When compressed, it generates voltage. 2. The column's mass could produce enormous pressure. This pressure could generate low-level electrical charge. 3. The top mechanism looks engineered. It resembles a conductor or terminal. 4. The city's layout supports energy distribution. St. Petersburg's geometric design is suspiciously precise. 5. Ancient cultures used resonance and vibration. Many temples and structures worldwide incorporate acoustic engineering. Could the column have been a resonance amplifier, an atmospheric energy collector, a vibrational transmitter, a grounding device, part of a long-distance communication system? We do not have enough evidence, but the theory fits the physical clues more cleanly than the official story. The destruction of alternative knowledge. Throughout history, knowledge has been destroyed repeatedly. The Library of Alexandria, the burning of Nalanda University, the destruction of Mesoamerican codices, Chinese dynastic purges, Rome's book burnings, the Vatican's forbidden archives, Soviet suppression of archaeology.
European colonial erasures. Every time knowledge was destroyed, humanity lost a piece of its memory. If the Alexander Column belonged to a forgotten civilization, then the records explaining it may have been lost centuries before the Russian Empire. This would explain why no technical drawings exist, why no tools have been found, why no quarry records survived. We are not missing a page of history. We are missing entire volumes.
Symbols added to ancient structures. A pattern emerges worldwide. Ancient structures were often repurposed by later civilizations. Egyptians added hieroglyphs to older megaliths. Romans carved symbols into Greek structures. Christians built churches over pagan sites. Islamic empires reused older temples. European kings renovated ancient fortresses. In every case, the later culture claims ownership, explains the structure through their religion, adds symbols, changes the meaning, not the structure. The Alexander Column fits this pattern. The angel on top is clearly newer. The base structure beneath it looks mechanical. The granite cylinder looks far older than 1834. This is the classic signature of historical appropriation. The technology gap we ignore. There is something historians rarely discuss. The older the structure, the more advanced the stonework. This is completely backwards. According to official timelines, newer societies, more advanced technology. Older societies, primitive tools. But reality shows the opposite. Göbekli Tepe, far older than Egypt, yet geometrically superior. Pumapunku, ancient yet machined with impossible precision. The Great Pyramid, older than classical Greece, yet more advanced. Alexander Column, modern date, ancient characteristics. Technology should evolve gradually. Instead, we see advanced, less advanced, primitive, modern recovery. This suggests a collapse occurred, followed by a dark age, followed by a rebuilding effort. The Alexander Column sits at the edge of that transition, too advanced for its official era, yet too recent to be ancient, unless it is older than we think. The city burying event. Many cities worldwide show deep mud layers covering lower floors. This is known as the mud flood mystery. St. Petersburg is one of them. Walk through the city and you will see windows below street level, doors halfway underground, bricked-up basements, sunken courtyards, entrances several meters below ground. These aren't design flaws. They are the signs of burial. Something covered the first floors of the city. Mud? Silt? Debris from a massive flood? Volcanic ash mixed with water. Whatever it was, it buried the lower levels but left the upper structures intact. This is why many buildings appear younger than they truly are. The Alexander Column, being tall and robust, would have survived untouched. If it predates the mud flood, then it belonged to the city before its reconstruction. This would make it pre-1700, possibly much older.
The column and geometric alignment. Another curious detail. The column aligns with several key architectural features surrounding it. The Winter Palace, the General Staff Building, the Admiralty. These alignments resemble ancient city layouts found in Angkor Wat, Teotihuacan, Giza, Rome, and Machu Picchu. Ancient builders loved geometry. They used it for energy distribution, astronomy, resonance, citywide harmonics, calendars, and seasonal tracking. But the Russian Empire? Their architectural style did not normally rely on cosmic alignment. If the column lines up with older structures, it may have been part of the original grid, The ancient city St. Petersburg was built upon, not added to it, inherited from it. The why behind the forgotten civilization. If the column truly comes from a lost civilization, what were they trying to accomplish? Possibilities include 1. Harnessing Earth's natural energy, using granite monoliths to tap into electromagnetic fields. 2. Long-distance communication, like giant tuning forks transmitting frequency signals. 3. Stabilization of cities, using resonance to reduce earthquake damage. 4. Atmospheric energy collection, drawing static electricity from the environment. 5. Spiritual or ceremonial uses. Though this explanation often replaces technological understanding, it cannot be ruled out. 6. Scientific measurement, tracking celestial movements or geomagnetic shifts. What we know is this: the column was not decorative. Its precision rules out symbolism alone. It had a purpose, one we have forgotten. Why the official story must stay simple. Governments and historians prefer simple answers. People with chisels built it. They used ropes. It took many workers. They were highly skilled. They avoid anything that challenges foundational narratives. Why? Because rewriting history threatens authority. If it becomes clear that modern nations inherited their monuments, their identity weakens. Because admitting lost technology undermines scientific prestige. If ancient people had knowledge we cannot replicate, our progress seems less impressive. Because academic careers depend on stable narratives, radical discoveries jeopardize reputations and funding. Because the past is political. Empires derive legitimacy from civilizational achievements. And so, the Alexander Column must remain a triumph of 19th century engineering, not a clue to a forgotten world, not a remnant of a lost technology, not evidence of a global reset, because the truth is dangerous, not to the public, but to the institutions built upon fragile historical foundations.
The echoes of a lost world. The deeper we travel into the mystery of the Alexander Column, the more we begin to sense that this monument is not just a structure, it is a message. A message from a world that once stood far ahead of us, a civilization that understood stone, energy, geometry, and resonance at a level we can barely imagine today. The more we examine the evidence, the more we begin to see that the official narrative does not merely hide a few missing pages, it hides an entire chapter of human history. As researchers, explorers, and curious minds sift through the fragments of the past, a new vision of reality emerges. This vision tells us that history is not a straight line of gradual progress. It is a cycle. Civilizations rise, reach incredible technological heights, and disappear, leaving clues behind for the next generation to rediscover. The Alexander Column may be one of those clues, the kind of clue that forces us to ask, what came before us, and how advanced were they really? The hidden blueprint under St. Petersburg. Every major city in the world has secrets buried under its streets, tunnels, ruins, forgotten basements. But St. Petersburg is different. The entire city rests on a blueprint that doesn't match the timeline we've been taught. Many of the streets align with celestial patterns. Many buildings appear older than their official construction dates.
Underground levels reveal signs of flooding and mud burial that point to a catastrophic event, not simply time and decay. The Alexander Column stands at the heart of this ancient layout, almost as if it was placed there by a civilization that understood the Earth's magnetic lines and natural energy grids. When you place the city's map over global ley lines, St. Petersburg aligns far too perfectly to be an accident, and the column sits like a conductor at the center of an orchestra. What was this city originally built for? Why does the architecture resemble ancient megalithic cultures, yet claim to be only a few hundred years old? And how does the column fit into this greater design? The empire's role in rewriting history. History is written by those in power. It always has been. When leaders rise to power, they often reshape the past to justify their control over the present. The Russian Empire had every reason to declare itself the builder of St. Petersburg. A new capital required a grand origin story, a narrative of strength, innovation, and progress. But if the city and its central monument were already here long before the empire arrived, then the narrative changes completely. The empire does not become the creator, but the inheritor. And accepting that would mean admitting that an older, more advanced culture once existed in the region, one that left behind inexplicable structures, technologies, and designs. That is not a story any ruling power would willingly tell. So the narrative was rewritten, and the ancient structures were renamed. Temples became palaces. Energy devices became decorations. Artifacts became monuments, and the technology behind them was forgotten or buried. The column as a forgotten technological instrument. The most controversial question remains: was the Alexander Column originally a piece of advanced technology? To answer this, we look at what we can prove. The column stands without a foundation. It maintains perfect balance despite earthquakes, storms, and centuries of erosion. Its granite surface displays machine-like polishing. Its top structure resembles a device, not ornamentation, and its placement aligns precisely with the city's energetic and geometric grid. In ancient cultures, from Egypt to India to the Andes, stone pillars were not just aesthetic symbols. Many were used to transmit, store, or resonate energy. They were tuned to frequencies, functioning like giant vibrational instruments. If the Alexander Column was part of such a system, it might have once served as a stabilizer, a conductor, or even a communication device. And when the older civilization fell, the empire simply repurposed the structure, placing a symbolic statue on top to mask its original function. This theory may sound bold, but every physical detail of the monument pushes us closer to this conclusion. The fragments left behind. As we reach the end of our journey, one thing becomes clear. The Alexander Column is not simply a monument. It is a surviving witness. A witness to a civilization with engineering methods we cannot replicate. A witness to a time when stone was shaped like clay. A witness to knowledge that once flowed freely but is now nearly forgotten. Every scratch on its surface, every impossible weight calculation, every perfectly measured angle tells us that someone, long before the 19th century, knew exactly what they were doing. They built with intention, with purpose, with mastery. And they left behind more than just stone. They left behind questions. Questions that challenge everything we assume about history, progress, and the limits of human potential. The final question. If this column is truly older and more advanced than we've been told, then the implications are enormous. It means we're not the first technologically capable civilization on this planet. It means entire chapters of our past have been erased. It means the city of St. Petersburg might stand on the remnants of a world we barely understand. And if one structure in the center of the city carries such contradictions, then what else is still hiding in plain sight? What other monuments, buildings, or artifacts belong not to the world we know, but to the world we've forgotten? The Alexander Column may not tell us exactly who built it. It may not reveal the full story of the past, but it forces us to ask the question that changes everything. Are we really the first advanced civilization on Earth? And the silence of the stone might be the only answer we need.